I would like to call the May 4th
Davie County Commissioners meeting to order. At this time, if you would please join me in the invocation. Dear God, as we come before you this evening, we're thankful for many blessings that we enjoy. Thankful we live in the United States. Thankful we live in Davie County. Thankful we have the right to govern ourselves. As we go through this meeting tonight, we ask for your wisdom and guidance, that you may help us make the best decisions we can for all in Davie County. In your name, amen. At this time, we have with us Mr. Ron Vogler for the Pledge of Allegiance. If you will come forward.
And something, we were talking about history a minute ago, so do we know the history of the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please share.
It was started in 1892 to celebrate the 400th anniversary of the discovery of America. And it was put in a children's magazine. And the guy who did it, he was Francis, and I forget his last name, started with a V, sent it out to the schools, and so they used it. And it was modified over time. Instead of the V flag, it's our flag of the United States of America. And in 1954, Eisenhower added under God, because he thought that of all the tools that we had, that was our most powerful tool to protect the country and guide the country. So I'm glad to hear you say a prayer that starts out with God. It's nice to do it. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Appreciate your service. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. And I have a little something to present to the county. And my history on this is rusty. And I was here, so it shouldn't be. There's no excuse for it. But sometime in the late 70s, the county, the homemakers had a contest to develop the county seal, which is on the flag, which is, we have maybe another flag around here. I'm not sure that may be it, on the wall.
Out in the hallway there.
In the hallway, okay. And the one in the hallway, there was a frame was made by a furniture company, and they actually, in order to make the frame, they cut a knife in order to cut out the wood, the pattern on the wood, to have the wood pattern that they wanted. But along about that time, my mother, who had several hobbies, one of which was needlepoint, decided that since I was here as county manager, that she would make a county seal. So she did, and it's an exquisite county seal that of course I'm prejudiced, but I think she did a very nice job on that. I'll let people see that. And the frame is a walnut frame. This was done in 1978. And George Harston, who is Peter Harston's adopted son, was working for the county at the time and did some carvings in the courtroom, and he made the frame. And in order to put it up here, I loaned it out to the bank at one time, and along the way, the glass got cracked. George had glued this board in with these boards in, and it took an afternoon to take those boards off and go get another piece of glass. But I did that. So, and I put it back on with screws, so if somebody else breaks it, it'll be easier to replace. So I will give that
Thank you.
to you, and hope you will find a place for it to go.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So move.
Second. Motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. 5-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the public comment period. I understand, Mr. Vogel, we have no one signed up this evening.
No one signed up for that this evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Okay. Next, we will have a...
We do have, Mr. Chairman, we do have one do is sign up now since that.
Okay.
Oh, okay. All right. Very well.
As of 6 o'clock, I'm going to sign up. We've got Dr. Knowles. Coles.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to the public hearing. Mr. Vogler.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, what you've got is a public hearing on economic development incentives for Avgol America Incorporated, and the resolution authorized expenditure of funds for an economic development project improvement agreement with the town of Moxville, the county of Davie, and Avgol. And I believe we have Mr. Terry Brawley here to comment on that.
Thank you, Councilman. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Manager, Davie County has another opportunity, and this time to have one of our own, Avgol America. And if you'll just share with me, I shared PowerPoint up there with me, and I'm sorry I didn't make the film clips tonight. But Avgol is an international company. Can you hear me? They're located in 4 different countries throughout the world: Israel, Russia, China, and Davie County, North Carolina. And some of the products they make, if you look at, they take you from the beginning to the end. Baby diapers all the way up to adult diapers. So they manufacture a product here, and they've been a good corporate citizen here since 2001. Currently have about 220 employees. They have a 24/7 operation. It's a rail-driven project. They bring polypropylene up from rail and turn it into the backing for baby diapers. It's the average wage in Davie County is about $30,000, and that's an average wage. And this company pays insurance and other benefits. There's a picture of the Avgol plant, which is just off of 601 South as you're going to the high school, past the Everhead Bridge on the right. They would like to expand somewhere in the world, and we'd love for them to do it here in Davie County. They want to spend $32 million on equipment, $8 million on building and improvements to the land, add 50 new jobs over the next 24 months with an average wage of $35,000 a year plus benefit. And if you look at the incentive proposal, it's our typical plan that we've done for most every other company. 75% ground property tax paid over a 5-year period of time, which is about $769,000. It's a performance-based incentive. If you do not perform, you don't get paid. In other words, they have to create the jobs, they have to make the investment, or nothing happens. So it's performance-based, just so you know, just like all of our other incentives. If there are questions, I'd be glad to take any questions.
Terry, I know at one time they said they were going to have 5 stages that they were going to build through. What stage is this?
Really, this is stage 5. This is the 5th expansion, I believe, that they have at this site. And they really were set up for about 10 different lines down there. But I believe this is 4th or 5th expansion they've had down there. They're one of your top taxpayers in the county.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. Good, solid company.
Terry, I believe they don't want to put words in, but they have a vision for
They do.
more expansion.
They sure do. And they're a global company. It lets us know that we're in competition with the world. It's not just, every other county next door. I mean, they could expand in Russia. They could expand in China. They actually looked at going to South America with this plant and go to another continent. They're in Israel now. There'll be some white-collar jobs that come back this way from Israel in this project. And we're to meet with the town of Moxville tomorrow night to talk to them about the same incentive practice.
I tell you, I have no question. I tell you, I just
Sure.
appreciate the work you guys do.
Well, thank you. Thank all. It's a team sport. It takes everybody playing on the same team. It's not a I thing. It's a we thing. And we're in a great location. We have great public officials. We have great employees in this area. And, it's all about providing jobs, but not only just jobs, but jobs with good wages, good benefits, And this is a manufactured good, which really helps us all. I'll leave you to the public here now unless you have questions.
Any further questions from Mr. Brawley?
Now's the time where the commissioner will open up for public hearing and public comment on the proposed resolution and proposed incentive agreement for Avgol. Anyone who wishes to come forward and speak either in favor of or opposed to it may do so. They'll need to come to the podium, need to announce their name, so that we have that in the public record, and then make any comments. Anyone wish to come forward?
James Coles from Farmington. The average income is 32,000
From the state.
from
30.
from the state, in this county. They're suggesting 35,000. Does that include salaries and benefits?
That's correct.
Health care?
No, it does not include health care.
None of that.
They do pay for it.
Okay. Well, it's nice to have a promise like that from a corporation, and as we know from Gildan, the number of jobs did not increase quite as fast as we had hoped. But the other question is, how much property tax would a person making $35,000 a year be able to contribute to our county grand assessment to pay for new schools and other projects? Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak in favor of or in opposition to? Seeing no one coming forward, I would turn this matter back over to the board and to Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Vogler.
Need to close the public hearing.
So we need a motion for that.
No, you can just close it.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve. If you've closed the public.
We've closed the public hearing, yes.
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Jones, a second from Mr. Poindexter. Any further discussion on the Avgol economic package?
Mr. Chairman, I think that this is an awesome opportunity we have to build on an existing business. I think it's great when we bring new businesses into the county, but when we can get a existing business to expand and not move out of the county, that's a great thing. And folks, I mean, it's important to realize that when we have a business, we not only get jobs, but we also get tax base. You know, a building over time will pay taxes without requiring services. So it's very important to have a balance between industry and residential growth. You need both. And with Terry's efforts and those of people across the county, we're as in good a shape as any county anywhere around when it comes to that balance. So I just want to commend Terry for his work. We got a great county here, folks. So I want everybody to realize what a great place we have, what a great place it is to live in, and folks are showing that by wanting to move here, by wanting their businesses to be here. And in time, I think actually the residential growth will show that too.
Thank you. Any other comments? If not, call for the vote. All in favor of approving the incentive request, raise your hand. Okay, 5-0. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brawley.
Thank you.
Right. Next, we have a public hearing on the text amendment for the ambulance services. Mr. Vogler.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, in your agenda packet under 6.2A, you've got an ordinance amendment, chapter 114 of the the Davie County ordinance. You'll note this is the same ordinance that we discussed last month. I have gone in and put in amending sections 114.06 to read as follows: that every owner operating an ambulance in the county on the effective date of this amendment shall have 60 days to apply for a franchise under under section 114.03 of chapter 114 of this ordinance. Failure to do so shall subject such owner to termination of the owner's rights to continue operating an ambulance under this chapter. I believe this is something that we discussed last month. We wanted to have a window of opportunity for anyone to come in and apply if they needed to at that point in time. With that, I believe the rest of the amendment was the same as last time. Now is the time in which the commissioners will open the public hearing for public comments. Again, I would ask anyone who wishes to comment on proposed amendment to the Chapter 114 ordinance to come forward, state your name, and at this point in time, make any statements for or against.
I didn't plan this. James Coles. Thank you. It's wonderful that there's private competition for Davie County. That means that Davie County will probably improve its ability and its service as well, having one or two other ambulance services. I still think that the county has to deal with the fact that they have been underpaid and not had much more than about a 20%. I'm sorry, I think they're losing about 20% for their ambulance and EMT services. So with regard to last board meeting, I would encourage you to see what you've done to address the problem of collection for our own ambulance service. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to come forward either for or against? Seeing no one else, I would turn it back over to the board to close the public hearing and act accordingly.
Okay. Declare the public hearing closed. And I would entertain a motion to approve this text amendment.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Barrett. Have a second.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Jones. Any discussion about the text amendment on the ambulance services? Seeing none, all in favor of the text amendment, raise your hand. 5-0. All right, thank you. Next, we will move to the consent agenda. Item 7. And would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So move. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion about the items on the consent agenda? If not, all in favor, raise your hand. 5-0. Thank you. Next, we move to the county manager's report. Mr. Ruffin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. One of the items on consent agenda was the interlocal agreement with the Winston-Salem Metropolitan Planning Organization, the MPO. This was interlocal agreement providing reimbursement for funding that for the interchange transportation study. A reminder, Andrew Meadwell asked for the board to appoint a transportation steering committee, recommended some categories of appointment. I'm going to add to that the Davie, maybe a commissioner representative, Davie Planning Board representative, NC DOT representative, perhaps Town of Bermuda Run, either a governing board or planning board, Winston-Salem MPO rep, and I would add that you maybe consider a couple citizens or a citizen. I know I've had one who has expressed interest, and I'll provide that information to you subsequently. So I'll be sending out something to you this week, so maybe by June, now that Kimley Horn is going to be working on that, we very much need to consummate that committee so they can work with the consultant and continue to advise you as that process moves along. Just a reminder that I'll be providing that. We are close to final negotiations on interlocals with Coolamy, Bermuda Run, and Moxville. I'll be providing more information to you about that. A couple of you are on an intergovernmental committee. I'll be getting that information to you this week, trying to maybe set up a meeting to discuss the details of that and see if there are any concerns or questions that you have before moving forward. Ideally, we need to bring those to you in June. All three of those expire on June 30th. So we'll be bringing those to the board through that committee in June for you to consider. All of you, though, will be getting copies of those agreements this week. If you have questions, please call me. 2 weeks from tonight, North Carolina law requires that county manager make a budget recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. That will be done on May 18th at 6 p.m. We're not there yet. What I can say in response to one of the comments that was made tonight is our board adopted some budget guidelines in January for the staff to follow through the budget process. One of those guidelines was that there was to be no tax rate increase beyond what was to be necessary for the bonded indebtedness for the new Davie High School, which was pointed out as 10.8 cents. And so there will be no tax rate increase beyond that 10.8 cents in the recommended budget. And that would obviously include any and all funding requests that the county has received or would receive, including the one that is due to the county by May 15th from Davie County Public School System. And I do not yet know what their requests will be, but we're certainly going to work with them. But there will be no tax rate increase required or recommended to the board to fund whatever the appropriation may be recommended for current expense for their budget. With that, Mr. Chairman, if you have any questions, happy to answer them. Have nothing further to report.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Ruffin? If not, we will continue. And next item is old business. The first item we have is we have some budget amendments that we need to take action on. The first one, if I can find it. This technology's great.
I didn't see any.
First is the capital improvement plan.
I think the first thing's action, yeah.
Yeah.
Budget amendments, no action. Okay. So first item we're going to talk about as far as on the old business is the proposed capital improvement plan. Mr. Ruffin, I'll turn that over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, ladies and gentlemen, we came before the board in January with a proposed 5-year capital improvement program for the board to consider. I had a public hearing in April, had some speakers who spoke to that. The board heard that. And important to understand that the adoption of this tonight is not the adoption of an increase in tax rate. That comes through the formal adoption of a budget ordinance, which is calendared, I think, for June 15th, if I remember correctly. What this plan does is allows the board to map out proposed capital improvements for the next 5 years and how those improvements would be funded, the sources of funding for those, and any tax rate increase if necessary, it would be required. All of the improvements in the 5-year plan, except for the new Davie High School and the park, which is where the present high school is, which is a $5 million bond referendum for that, and $54.5 million bond referendum for the high school. The only tax rate increases in the 5-year capital plan will be for those two bond projects, 10.8 cents for the new high school bonds, which were sold 2 weeks ago, and we'll be closing on May 12th. And then, of course, the 1 cent in or around 2017 for the $5 million bond sale for the park that will be proposed and built upon the grounds where the present high school is. One of the things we've learned through the bond sale process is the importance of capital planning. We are a AA rated county. That's one of the, there's only 2 higher ratings you can have in North Carolina for bond ratings. And AA rated counties need to have a capital planning process. It's just, it's a given. When we attended bond rating interviews in March in New York, we pledged that we had a proposed capital plan. We intended to follow through on it, and we intended to implement it. Tonight's vote, if a majority vote is indeed the fact, would mean that staff would begin rolling in the first year of expenditures in the budget that's going to be presented on the 18th. Two of those projects, just for example, one is the Viper Communications project, a very important communications project for all of our public safety operations, and one that is sorely needed. A little over $3 million for that has been planned. And then renovation of the old courthouse. It's a 2-year project, but one that's sorely needed, and it's an asset that we need to preserve and protect. And there are a number of projects over the next 5 years. Those are 2 of the initial ones for which funding has been pledged. So it's now the board's opportunity to vote on that as a matter of public policy, and that vote would, of course, mean that staff would begin to execute that plan as adopted. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll yield for any questions or board comments.
I have one question about the East Davie EMF station. There's $600,000, I think, in here for that. There, at one time, there was something about the location in here. I do not see that on my agenda tonight. We
ask you to recommend it in this plan that you delay the construction for a year in order for staff to come back to the board with a selected site. That it was our opinion, based on the analysis of calls and where those calls originated and the response times associated with them, that the site that had been selected a few years ago was probably not the best site given current call data. When you adopt this tonight, that of course puts staff in a position where we can then begin the site selection process. We did not want to do that until you had an adopted document, so we'll begin looking for a site, working with you through one of your subcommittees to find a site. That would probably be our capital subcommittee, which, if I remember correctly, is Commissioner Barrett and Vice Chairman Poindexter, I believe. Be working with them on site selection to bring a site back to the board in the first year, 15-16, to be constructed in the second year, 16-17. About a $600,000 expenditure would be proposed for both. If you'll remember, on January 21st, the area where it appeared to be central and best to call volumes and best response times, I think, was in the Farmington area. That we've not found a site, we've not negotiated with anybody, would not do that until we had formal direction from you through the approval tonight to proceed in that regard.
So what we're approving tonight is an East Davie site for $600,000, location to be determined.
Yes, sir. And that would be a formal action required by you to purchase that site.
But there's nothing in the $600,000 for land cost.
No, but I do think we've got several options that we can consider to find those funds.
I have one brief question in regards to and this is more of an update. I know Mr. Pierce is here and Mr. Ruffin. The legislation that was going to flex up 9/11 funds that might help with us with some resources for the Viper. Do y'all have any update on that?
Rodney, you provided me some information last week. Would you like to come forward and just tell the board what you've learned? I think that legislation, by way of background, is moving forward. It seems to be extremely popular, although it has been opposed by the state 911 board.
Yeah, basically it's been filed and it's working through the process, and if it does pass, it could not only open the avenue for funding for certain radios and equipment like that, but like I said, the board is kind of fighting that because right now there's strict guidelines that we followed for that. So right now, it's still in the working process.
It did meet the crossover deadline. So it is an active bill that will be able to be acted upon one way or the other if it comes out of committee. So it did meet crossover deadline.
So, I mean, the potential is possibly there, so, and it's still a possibility, it's still progressing forward. So,
Still moving.
What is the balance in our fund that could be used for something else?
Robin, you know right off the top of your
I
head?
don't know right off the top of my head. I think it's probably, I'm just gonna say, maybe around $200,000. We're not talking about, being able to pay for the whole Viper project.
Oh, I know that.
and we also are looking at, in the future, upgrading our 911 phone system that's outdated in the future, and that will come from the 911 funds that's been rolling over. I've been talking with our service provider, CenturyLink, on that. That's in a future project, too. It's 911 funding that's been rolled over, so.
One of the things we do post tonight, if you adopt the CIP, obviously, is the financing package for the Viper radio system will need to be bid out. The actual equipment is on state contract, and so because it's on state contract, that would not have to be bid because there's guaranteed pricing on that that's competitive. But the financing would need to be bid out. And there are a few options on that that staff wants to look at before we come back to you. That comes back to you for formal approval before any contract for equipment could be signed, as well as a contract for the equipment.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, any other questions or comments? I would just like to say, again, I've said this before, but I appreciate all the work from the department heads and the staff in putting this together. This has been quite a effort to put all this together, something that was sorely needed, in my opinion. And as we work through this, understand this is a work in progress. It will evolve as we move, but this is a starting point. And again, something I'm very pleased that the county now has in place to work from and update as we move forward.
And Mike, isn't it the case, I mean, this is going back in time, but that to preserve our bond rating and hopefully in time get a better bond rating, this is the kind of forward planning that they look to?
Yes, if we had gone up with a story that we did not have a formal capital plan and had no plans to implement one, I think we would have been dinged. Frankly, between now and 2017, when the recreation bond is rated, I think our county has a very good chance of getting a one-tick increase, which would be one step below AAA. I really do believe we have a good chance because we have such a strong economic story in our county that a lot of counties don't have. And so, the county is financially well managed, we're well governed. All of the things that we can control and should control in a correct way are being controlled. The things we can't control, things like the economy, per capita income, those kinds of things that often ding counties, we actually have a lot of good points that are going to fall in our favor, and I think only stand to improve over the next few years. So I'm hopeful we may get a little uptick in our bond rating for the recreation bond.
That's good.
Okay. No other questions. Entertain a motion to approve the CIP as presented.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the CIP as presented, raise your hand. 5-0. Thank you. All right. The next item under new business, or old business rather, is the Davie County budget amendment request for the bond premium. This, Mr. Ruffin, would you like to speak to that?
Robin, just come forward. I know they may have some questions, but we already have a capital projects ordinance that was adopted back when the grading was needed in the fall, in which we had the $54.5 million as revenue source. Tonight is essentially an amendment to the capital projects ordinance for the new high school, adding what we know now is the $7,075,314 in additional bond premium from the bond sale, and then appropriating on the expenditure side, general construction funds, the amount of $60,990,649, underwriting fees, $355,006, and then the cost of issuance, $175,000. With your approval of this tonight, that would enable the Board of Education to consider the award of its contract for the new high school at a subsequent meeting. And we close on bonds on May the 12th. We will close, and how long does it take for that money to come forward?
We will get it on the 12th.
Okay. So the money will be in our accounts on the 12th. And a lot of that's important because of the pre-audit standards and the kinds of things that need to happen for the schools to award a contract. Needs to show that the funds are on hand, that this board has formally appropriated those monies, as you need to do so through your capital projects ordinance and particularly through the amendment tonight. With that, I'll see if Robin has anything to add, and we'll be happy to answer questions.
I don't really have anything to add, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I have a couple.
Sure.
Do we have, first from Mr. Ruffin, do we have any kind of formal plan from the school board about?
We asked them for, before we went for bond rating, after the bids were open, we asked, we had to talk to the local government commission, obviously, about the bids, and so we asked for them to scale the contract back in one of two ways. One, if we were to get no premium and have a $54.5 million bond sale only, would they be able to scale the contract back within those amount of funds? And the answer was yes, and we were given information by Dr. Hartness that illustrated what those reductions to the bid would be in order to make that work. Secondly, if we anticipated at the time a bond premium of $6 million, added together with the $54.5 in bond funds and the $2 million that the school system was going to put forward, $62.5 million, we asked Dr. Hartness and his staff what kind of scaling would be necessary to get the bids back into that contract price. And we had those two pieces of information that we then shared with the local government commission, which actually was required in order for the bond sale to move forward. They needed to see that. Beyond that, no, sir, we haven't gotten anything else.
Okay. Second, the second question, and Robin, you may be able to do this. There is a difference between a coupon premium and the net interest rate that we're going to pay, right? The net interest rate is what?
The net interest rate is 2.57.
2.57. The coupon rate is what?
Between 3% and 5%. It varies over the life of the bond.
So historically, my understanding is that the premium is not a windfall. It is a payment from the purchasers of the bond back to us to cover the higher interest rate. Is that a correct assessment?
Yes, what the premium is so that, investors want a good interest rate of 3 to 5% that they would get.
Got you. So that premium, again, is not a windfall. It is a difference in the net. It's what they pay back to us to accommodate a higher book interest rate, right?
That's correct.
That is correct. Okay, thank you. So historically, and I know this isn't, for us, this isn't something we've done a lot of. Historically, those dollars, maybe Mr. Ruffin, you can answer this, are used to go back against the debt, or in our case, we were going to use them to purchase less, to sell fewer bonds, right?
That money can be used as the board deems. I've worked where the premiums have been taken, placed in the capital projects fund and used to fund other capital projects. That was done in Durham County on several bond issuances. It can be used, it applied against debt, or it can be used for project costs associated with the project. You could do it for any.
If it's applied to other capital projects, though, then that's possibly debt that you don't have to incur.
Correct.
That is,
That could
right,
be.
right. So in this instance, we are, we're taking the premium, we're applying it to the project. So as I see this, then we're pretty much paying the 3 to 5% on this because we've not used that premium, and this is a statement, not necessarily a question, because to accommodate less debt in other projects or to roll back the debt that's incurred in this project by selling fewer bonds or just simply lowering the amount of debt we have on the project. That's
You said that was a statement.
that's the way I see it.
I'll
And
leave it
if
at that.
if I would, if I'm not correct, please correct me.
Well, the total interest cost of 2.57, accommodates the premium. That's, our total interest cost, including the premium.
We would not have the premium if the voters had not voted for a $54.5 million debt issuance. So, to me, the premium, if where we're headed here is the premium can be used for other issues other than the school.
It certainly can, but it is not a windfall. We're paying a higher book rate on the interest because we're applying that premium to the project versus paying down the debt or selling fewer bonds. Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. West? Okay, any other comments? Thank you.
I make a motion we approve the adjustment.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the $7,075,314 premium. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, this again puts us in a difficult position, and I'm not going to belabor it, and I'm not going to go through the process of seeking amendment again, but I do think that most folks in the county thought that we were financing 54.5, not 61 or 61.5. And we're at the point now where we need to move forward. We need to do the best we can with what we have. We've already taken the step of approving the 54.5 bond plus the $7 million premium to go to the schools. So like I said, I'm not going to belabor the point, but I think that we need to be very sensitive going forward to how we communicate these kinds of issues so that we retain the trust of the people.
I would just like to make a statement that the taxpayers of this county is going to be paying back $54.5 million. They are not paying back this premium.
They're going to pay back a higher interest rate to get that premium.
The interest rate comes about from the underwriters. The underwriters we would never have got these bonds sold at the 2.75 or whatever it is. That's a problem you run into anytime you sell bonds. There has to be some kind of premium and or a discount, depending on how high the interest rates are in the country. You sometimes get a discount when you sell bonds. But that's what happened here. And we are paying back $54.5 million, not $69.90.
You applied $7 million to the project that could have been used to accommodate debt. There's just no question there's a difference in those two interest rates, Mr. Ferguson, and I'm going to stop here. There's just no question. The facts are the facts. It's not a windfall, and there's just not arguable.
It's also not arguable, and I'm going to be quiet after this, that you wouldn't have the premium if it wasn't for what the voters voted on in the spring of last year. So
well, not to beat a dead horse, but when we were going to finance 54.5, which is what this board was intending to do originally, we did a 48.6 or thereabouts to get with the premium to get 54.5. I mean, that's history. We can't do anything about what's happened. We got to move forward, but I think we got to be straightforward with the voters.
Okay, any other comments? Not, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, it passes 4-1. Thank you. Okay. The next item we have is a closed session.
You got Commissioner's comments.
Commissioner's comments, I'm sorry. And our new technology, I apologize. So anyway, Commissioner comments, thank you. Mr. Jones.
I just want to thank everyone for attending tonight, and thank you for your input that we get from you on a number of things. Mr. Barrett is correct. We live in a great county. It's a great place to raise families, and our better days are ahead. Good days are ahead. Great days are ahead. And I just thank each of you for being here.
Mr. Poindexter.
I also would like to agree with Commissioner Jones on that, and it's wonderful to look out and see a crowd out here. A lot of nights you look out and don't see many faces at all. I have had some requests from Advance area citizens that would like to see some of our senior center brought to that area, as well as Farmington and Moxville area. And I think that's exactly why this board wanted to make a study to see if there were other areas of the county, and there's still probably others out there that would like to see something in their neighborhoods as well to serve their citizens without having to all travel to Moxville to do that, because senior citizens are just that. They're not able to get around like they used to. Also, I have a thing here that we received from Megan Williams, who is head of our veteran services here in Davie County, that Mr. Harold Frank, if you remember, I think he had our January pledge, has received or is receiving from the country of France a thank you for his service in World War II. And as you know, he was a prisoner of war that was there in Germany for a while. I think that's wonderful that they recognize our veterans who helped them free their country again. And with that, that's all I have to say.
Mr. Barrett.
Well, you know, you hear us up here and we have disagreements, and we're trying to blend views and do the best we can with tough situations sometimes. But I don't want to lose sight of what we said in terms of what a great county we live in. And this democracy is not always a pretty process where you debate differing points of view and different viewpoints. But I'm very proud of Davie County, and I think we have as much going for us here as any county in North Carolina, perhaps in the entire country. And while it will go in fits and starts and not always be a smooth process, I trust these folks up here to do a good job, and I trust our citizens to keep track of us and light a fire under us when we're not doing a good job, and appreciate y'all doing that. So thank you so much.
Mr. Ferguson.
Well, again, as everyone else has said, I would like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. And yes, we do live in a wonderful county, and we have companies like Avgol who wants to expand here. And we have a lot of other companies that have brought businesses in here and continue to. We're very, very fortunate that we live in a place where it has an interstate highway running through the middle of it, and there's a lot of interest in this area. I serve on the, what is the original COG, I think it's now called the Regional Piedmont Council of Governments. There's 12 counties represented there. And Davie County is probably one of the stars of all the counties that are represented in that 12 counties, of places where businesses want to locate. We're very, very fortunate to be here and have the citizens we have. And we're very fortunate to have the staff we have in Davie County that looks after things every day. I know we had a water main breakdown on 601, or 64, I think it was, the other day, and they were out there practically all night taking care of that. These are the kind of things that your staff does, and we are very, very fortunate that we do live here. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to echo the comments been made. Appreciate everyone coming out. It's always good to see the room full, and we've had good crowds the last several meetings, and we appreciate that. You do need to be here and hold us accountable. That's why we're up here, and we're doing our best to be transparent and tell you everything you need to know and should know. So please feel free to ask if you don't have a question as we move through. You will see that Brenda Hunter is not here. She retired after the last meeting, but was on the consent agenda last Friday. May the 1st was Brenda Hunter Day here in Davie County. So it was a big celebration, but anyway, we do wish Brenda well in her 30 years here, wish her well in retirement. I would also, I am fortunate enough to sit on the Centerpoint Human Services Board as representative of Davie County. It is in charge of the mental health for Davie County and 3 other counties. May is Mental Health Month, and just to make you aware of that, and hopefully next month we'll be making some announcements about some mental health services further being provided here in Davie County. But mental health is an issue that's it's, in my opinion, somewhat misunderstood and doesn't quite get some of the press that some of the other illnesses do. So anyway, with that, appreciate you being here, and we will, if my technology is right, we are going into closed session.
Need a motion and a second to close session.
Need a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Poindexter.
Second.
Second by Mr. Ferguson.
And you need to indicate that you need to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statutes 143-318-11A6 is the purpose of going into closed session.
Okay. All right. We will incorporate that by reference. And all in favor of going into closed session? 5-0. Thank you.
Second.
Motion and a second. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
All right. Next month, the goal is to be out here about 7.